I am way too young to cut the grass in a pair of white New Balance shoes. It's just not there yet. Eventually, I will be there.
With your black socks.
Eventually, I will be there. All right, but I am not there yet.
Right.
And I'm going to buy this motorcycle to prove that I don't wear white New Balances yet.
Yes.
And it's really sad because those are really comfortable shoes.
Welcome to the Badass Dad podcast. KDH here on the microphone in the Ironyetistudios, and Stephen, DeSchryver.
Kevin, how's it going, man?
Good, man. You know, it's April 15th. Should be tax day, but it's not.
It should be tax day. I actually just spoke to my dad yesterday. So he's a certified, he's a tax accountant, and this is the first April 15th in 30 years that he hasn't been losing his mind.
Yeah.
But people calling, oh my God, I had to file taxes.
Scrambling to last minute, yes. Oh my gosh. Well, you know, we're coming toward the tail end of school and all that's going on there. And, you know, it's just, Colorado is a very interesting area. I mean, you know, we were like in the 70s last week or whatever. And before I walked in here, it was snowing.
It's what happens in Colorado in April and May. Just wait for the May snowstorm. That's coming too.
Yeah, it's totally crazy. But I wanted to talk today, spend a little bit of time talking about like getting unstuck, or, you know, there are tons of us guys that are out there and maybe we've been doing the same thing for years. You know, maybe we're 10 or 15 or even 20 years into a career, and, you know, changing careers, you know, doesn't make sense on one level because we're like, I got just enough years, you know, before my pension kicks in or before my, you know, I'm vested or whatever it may be, but I'm still far enough away that it still's like, man, I got to grind out these last few years. And so, you know, I told you, you know, how do we show some diligence during this season? How do we, you know, and not just make it a grind? It's not just grinding it all the time. Just how do we find diligence in the desert, in the wilderness?
Well, sometimes we have to grind it out, right? I mean, that's where we learn a lot about ourselves, but you have to work to get out of that rut. You know, I see it as, you know, the golden handcuffs where, like you said, you've made it so far in where it doesn't make sense to go for a new job, you know, and that you have just enough vested where they can keep you for a long period of time, but you're not quite at the point where they want to get rid of you because you cost too much. Right. You know, where they're going to make it easy for you. Like, here, take this, go away. Yeah. Don't come back. So yeah, and I'm nearing that point right now. You know, I just showed you a calendar that I laid out everything that I had done and everything that I had done, careers, coaching positions, leadership positions, buying the house, getting married, all of those things in the last 17 years, and you're looking ahead at the next 13 and there's a big question mark. Like, what do we do? What is the next challenge? Yeah, I'm someone who needs to continue to grow, to learn new things, to do different things. We built, was in leadership, started a new program, built a house, started a podcasting company. What's next? Right. And I'm getting bored.
Okay. All right. What a perfect subject, you know, today, because I would tell you this is a natural phase, you know, and you are not there yet. So don't take what I'm about to say and cloak yourself in this. Okay. But as some of us are middle-aged men, okay, we're in the middle of life somewhere. I would love to think that I'm the earlier stages of midlife, but who knows? You know, I wonder if that's where that whole idea came from. So you go out and you buy a sports car, you find a new girlfriend, or, you know, I mean, whatever it is. And, you know, I'm kind of beginning to understand why some guys would do some of this, because, you know, when they're going, man, I've been here long enough, or I've been married long enough, or I've been this long enough, I've been in a career long enough, or been whatever. And what's the next adventure? Because we need an adventure. We need something to be going after.
No, you're absolutely. And there was a great book written about this, about, you know, we talked about the midlife surprise. What did you call it? I called it the midlife challenge.
Oh yeah, you called it a crisis, and I said I think I'm going to call it adventure.
Midlife adventure.
Yeah.
And the reason why, I mean, it's a biological reason why, is because you want to feel younger as you cross over that threshold of middle age, whatever that looks like. You date somebody younger, you get a sports car because you want to feel young, and more importantly, you want to be perceived as young, because, you know, we as human beings are fallible, and we do care about what other people think about us, even though it doesn't matter. Yeah. You know, we can't get that out of our lizard brain. Where do I stand on the social hierarchy? And I don't want to be perceived as the old guy. I am way too young to cut the grass in a pair of white New Balance shoes. It's just not there yet. Eventually, I will be there.
With your black socks.
Eventually, I will be there. All right, but I am not there yet.
Right.
And I'm going to buy this motorcycle to prove that I don't wear white New Balances yet.
Yes.
And it's really sad because those are really comfortable shoes.
You know, we always made fun of those, but, you know, they start looking more and more attractive.
I have wide feet. Do you know how difficult it is to get wide shoes? I walk into, you know, a Foot Locker or whatever that is. I can't buy anything there because it doesn't come wide enough.
Right.
I want to wear the new J's. They don't come in wide. That's a sad statement right there.
That is a sad statement. So let's talk about this because this is a danger. And, you know, to be a badass dad, you've got to finish strong. It's not just about how you start the race. It's so much the game can be won or lost in moments, and it's in this middle. It's in this one season. You know, I'm thinking about some friends of mine who have kids that are a little bit older than mine. You know, Jacob actually is turning 14 years old, so we'll start high school here in a year. But many of my friends have kids that are, you know, finishing high school or finishing college. You know, I actually have some that are now grandparents, and you know, they're kind of like ready to move on to that next phase. And I'm like, man, I'm not even close to being there, you know, but how do we stay diligent during this season? And I think one of the ways that we do it is that we find maybe a new challenge. We find something, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a new job or a new career or a new girlfriend or a new car, but to find something new that pushes us, that challenges us. I mean, you know, it was about 5 years ago that I started jujitsu, and that was part of it for me. It was a new adventure, a new challenge. It was something that was going to stretch me, and I had to be willing to step back into an area that I had no skill, no knowledge in, and the challenge would be enormous.
Talk about that real quick, though, because I know you talk about white belts all the time, and being a white belt, meaning going back to being a rookie at something brand new. And I got to imagine, especially walking, and I'm not pumping you up, and I don't want that to come off this way, but I'm just saying, I got to imagine walking into a jiu-jitsu gym and getting thrown on your back is tough in middle age. If you're there, or whenever, let's say 40.
You just say old.
It's old. So, and I got to imagine that's difficult. And how long did it take? So for everybody out there because they're going to walk into that gym, they're going to do something, and it's going to hurt the first time. And it's going to be uncomfortable, and it sucks, and it's a blow to the ego because you're not good at it. Yeah. And you're so used to being good at it because you've been doing the same stuff for 30 years. So how long, not to put a time limit on it, or a time frame, how long did it take to get beyond, I don't want to get thrown on my back anymore. This really hurts. I'm embarrassed.
Yeah. Well, okay, we'll deal with this area for sure. So this is the physical area. And I think it's so true. So Justin, when I first started training with Justin's our black belt and been a black belt now, like coming up on 20 years. He's been a black belt for 20 years. Okay. Absolutely insane. But he told me, he said, Kevin, when you come train with me, you got to give me 6 months. Okay. That was his standard. I was like, okay, you know, so for 6 months, even if I'm just training 3 days a week, I mean, you start doing the math, you start understanding, you know, we're getting 25, 40, you know, times in there. But it's so true. At some point, it doesn't hurt quite as much. You know, at some point, you know, there's that inflection point where, wow, I'm actually not as sore today as I was yesterday. I think the same thing, whether it's podcasts. I think this is going to be like number 99. I mean, we're knocking on the door of 100, I think, right here. And the time, effort, and energy and frustration and, you know, I don't know, even editing or whatever, you know, we've made, I know you like to harken back to the early days, but, you know, we've made so many strides and it's so much better now than it was before. And it's evolved. And it's the same thing I'm telling you, it's the same thing in business. You know, for someone, you know, who's starting a business or making a pivot in business or something like that, when the challenge is enormous and you're developing those skills, it takes humility, it takes commitment, it takes grit, it takes all those things to get back in it, to get back after it and to stay after it long enough so that your skills can develop, so that it's not just, you know, anxiety all the time. And every time you get on the microphone, every time you step on the mats, or every time you're approaching a deal, or every time you're walking in the classroom to teach. When you were teaching, harken back nearly 20 years, you know, when you first walked in the classroom. Now you've done some student teaching, you did that, But when it was just you and that door closes, can you remember that rookie season?
I was awesome. I don't know what you're talking about. I was absolutely outstanding. And no, it's terrifying. My mom actually brought this up one day. She's like, what happens when they all just decide to get up and run out the door? I'm like, Mom, they don't do that. She's like, but what if they do? I'm like, I don't need to think about that.
Right. Yeah.
No, but you're absolutely, and I would also encourage, it doesn't need to be, you're going to encounter difficulty. It doesn't necessarily need to be physical. Let's say I would encourage everybody to pick up something new, whether it's playing a guitar, reading a book, reading a new book, trying something new. Like I just picked up investing recently. Stacy picked up investing in cryptocurrencies. The first couple of months, the first 6 months, I'm still learning. I'm on the mat with investing. Yeah. I have not made good, sound choices. I haven't lost a lot of money, but I'm learning. Whereas Stacy, picked up the crypto thing and she's rolling with it, and it's learning something that adds juice to our relationship too, because it's something different to talk about than how are the kids? How is, whatever, how is work today? It's how's crypto going? What did you learn today? We talked about NFTs, we talked about just before the podcast. I had no idea what an NFT was 3 months ago. Yep. And now I know what it means.
Yeah. Well, and I love that because one of the questions that could come up, through all this is, okay, I've been married over 20 years. What do? You toss her to the side and move on to the next? Is that how you do it? Or how do you keep the juice flowing? One of the things I've written about before was, after all these years, we still kiss. How do you keep that? How do you keep that adventure? And I think one of the ways that you do it is you find something that you could be interested in, and each of you can be interested in, whether it's crypto or investing or rock climbing or jujitsu or writing a book or cooking. There's a ton of different areas because it's so easy as relationships evolve that we can take people for granted.
Without a doubt, 100%, as Seth would say. We do take advantage of that, or it's easy to overlook how good it is. And it's easy to say that the grass is always greener. But I would encourage everybody, one of the things that Stacy and I started doing a couple of years ago, because she was always working, I was always working. We didn't have a lot of time together. And it was very much, it was easy to maintain that type of relationship when you don't see the other person, right? So we started taking walks together. And for as silly as it sounds, you take a 15-minute walk with somebody. You don't even have to talk. Don't worry about what to say. Don't worry about talking. Don't worry about if it's uncomfortable at first. Just go for a walk. Spend some time outside. So many times, especially in the era of COVID, we're stuck at our desks, stuck on Zoom meetings, and we assume that, our loved one is also just another screen. Spending some time outside is incredibly beneficial.
Well, absolutely agree with that. There's a reason why cliches are cliches, but, familiarity does breed contempt. And it's, when we get so familiar with something, then we kind of go, well, I guess I don't really need to talk to them about that because I already know how they're going to respond, or I don't need to ask her about how she's going to do this because I already know. And that's horrible. That's got to be a level of purgatory that, a relationship can go through or will go through. And so maybe giving them the benefit of the doubt, and maybe it starts with, I don't know, watching a Netflix show together and then talking about that. I love the idea of going for a walk because, I've shared before, but, that walk around the block with the teenager, like if you want to really rekindle a relationship there, you shut up, you don't have an agenda, and you literally just walk around the block with your teenager, with your spouse, with your young one, whoever it is, and just let the conversation start where it starts. And then just listen.
Well, and that's it, right? You got to listen. You have to listen. And it's so easy. I feel it's easy. It's easy to ignore the relationship because we have soccer practice. We have football practice. We have to make dinner. I have to go to work. I have to be up at 5 a.m. And it was a movie with Morgan Freeman. I don't know the name of it off the top of my head. Bucket List. And he said, after all of the years of noise, it all comes down and I'm just staring at my wife again for the first time in 30 years. Yeah. I never want to get to that point.
Yeah. Well, I think it's incredibly powerful. Now, I want to mention this because I think this, from a formula standpoint kind of works as well. And I'm not even going to try to mention the author's name, but from the book Flow, like 20, maybe even 30 years old now, the author really does an amazing job of giving us a graphic, and it's a little, a little XY chart. So, you on the Y-axis, you have challenge, and on the X-axis, you have skill. And so, early on, jujitsu, podcasting, teaching, cooking, whatever it is, the skill level is so low and the challenge may be so great that it produces anxiety. But as time goes by, we become better teachers. We become better communicators. We become better at prospecting in business. We become, better parents, all those different things. So our skill level develops. If we don't continue to face higher and higher and higher challenges or push ourselves to higher levels, and the challenge stays very low and the skill develops, we'll become bored. And I can't tell you how many guys that I talk to, they've become just bored with their career, with their relationship, with their health. And, I think that's one of the reasons why so many different, these Spartan races and everything else, it's something new. It's something fresh for a guy to go do. And it's not something they haven't done obstacle course racing, or, maybe they did the O course, back when they were, first got enlisted, but they haven't done anything like that since they left. But now they've got something. And so now that sweet spot, that flow is when there's a great ratio between the challenge and the skill level to continue to push ourselves. So if we're a black belt in some area, whether it's business, relationships, or whatever, then we've got to be able to do some things that grow, that stretch us, that have a greater challenge for us in there. And it's tough because as we become more skilled, I don't know that it's harder to find challenges, but the less we want challenges, maybe we become more comfortable.
I think we get very comfortable with what we're doing because we know we're good at it. And I'm not ripping on anybody because this is myself included. We get so hung up on our ego about how we're going to be judged that I know I'm good at this. I'm just going to keep doing that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to try and build something new. And that's the other piece. I think we tend to stay within our comfort zone with our new even with our new thing, even with our challenges, right?
Yep.
If it's, I can't even think of a good example, but if I'm a ultra marathoner, I can go do a Spartan race. And that's a little bit different. It's with stuff in the way kind of thing. So we stay within our comfort zone, even though it's a little bit different. I challenge everybody to go out there and try something way out of their comfort zone. Like if you're in finance, pick up crocheting. You might be, someone just talked about it. It was Churchill.
Okay.
Churchill did watercolors, right? Watercolor painting. So he was in the midst of World War II, had gone through World War I, Prime Minister, World War II, and his greatest asset was doing watercolors. It was something brand new. I think his niece or somebody gave it to him, and he said that that's what helped him keep his mind, and it brought out creativity. And now those watercolors, his paintings, are a work of art, and they're hanging all over the world.
Well, I tell you this, there's a couple, I listen to several different podcasts, but one of the things I've noticed with a couple of these guys, they've kind of been doing the same thing for so long. They're still good. They're still delivering. They're still doing it. But there's just a few people that made a little tweak in how they do it, where maybe they had an interview podcast before, and then all of a sudden they started speaking on some specific topics, and they literally let their voice be heard a little bit more through it. And it's fun because you can tell the excitement, the energy, the challenge for them. I'm not quite at a place where I can talk about some of the other things that are going on in my world, but I think you felt from me just a little different when I was talking to you about, some of the things that are happening outside these four walls. And there's something energizing. There's something about it, that new adventure, that willingness to not be a 100% sure. I know the compass is pointing north, but I'm not sure what's going to be around the bend. I just need to continue to follow the compass. And as you shared with me earlier, hey, trust the process.
You have to.
So I love it. Well, it's really interesting. I think it's a great time for this. People coming out, COVID, all the things that are going on. I think some of the greatest creative times that we will ever have will be coming out of those moments of frustration or challenge or setbacks. And if we continue to persist, we can have better relationships. We can have, greater level of success. We can actually do what we all set out to do, which is to finish strong, to have a great relationship with our kids when our kids no longer have to be around us, to have a relationship with our spouse that is not so child-centric, that is not, so in that moment that we go, hey, listen, we're going to have a relationship that spans long after the kids are out of the house. And I'm not trying to get my kids out of the house just yet, but you know what? I understand we got to start looking past this. You know, we talked, I don't know, a few weeks ago, we talked about what does life look like after you've had success? How do you continue on with that? I think this is part of it. Figuring out maybe where you're stuck, maybe where you're developed a little bit of a rut, and let's try a different path. Let's do something a little differently. Let's maybe start studying some Elizabethan poetry. I don't even know what that is, but it sounded cool.
It's poetry written during the Elizabethan time, obviously. Duh.
You know, maybe it's time to pick up the spatula and go out there and learn how to grill. Anyway, guys, hey, you know, I hope that you take this challenge right now. And if you're kind of in a spot where you're feeling maybe a little stuck or you're feeling a little frustrated or things aren't happening as fast as you need to, yet one, stay diligent, no doubt about it. Get the hard work, the grit. Understand that all that you're doing right now, there are some little eyes that are looking and they're watching you. They're seeing what you do in those times of frustration, those times of growth, those times of setback, those times of success. Those little eyes are looking at you, and you are a badass dad. And we are committed to forging stronger fathers. And we appreciate you guys. Have a great day, and we are out. Hey guys, I wanted to thank you so much for listening to the Badass Dad podcast. We are so excited about what's going on in 2021, and we want to encourage you to connect with us. So you can hit us up on the Facebook or Instagram at BadAssDads _podcast is where you'll find us on Instagram. And if you want to hit me directly, it is KDH at BadAssDads.org. KDH at BadAssDads.org. Man, appreciate you guys. Let's get after it.